Welcome back, my lords and ladies, to the Cast Beyond the Wall. We are your guide to all things Westerosi, and we're here to bring you a review, analysis, and fan v fan debate of each episode of HBO's hit show, Game of Thrones. And this week, we're discussing the Season 6, Episode 3, Oathbreaker. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and I want to let you listeners know that I'm actually done. My watch has ended. Stoll, you take the podcast now. Daniel, you take this podcast, because I sure as hell wouldn't want to leave it with Austin.
Hey. Come on now.
It will be an ode to you. I will make sure that we honor you in all that we do.
All Littlefinger all the time.
Yeah, you better there better be a Littlefinger party in here. You know what? That's fine. I'm gonna go hand it off to some other schmuck, okay? Because I didn't feel the passion off your voice, Stoll. I need more belief. See that test? You didn't pass.
Well, I'm Austin Lucari, and the true heir to the throne. And have you guys noticed that, like, Game of Thrones has turned into a fairy tale lately? We got people flying on dragons, getting eyesight back, rising from the dead. This is very non-George R. R. Martin-esque.
And mostly good things are happening. It's weird.
I don't know what you're talking about. Well, there was two major deaths last week. A dude got thrown off a bridge, and his son stabbed him in the chest. What do you mean this isn't Game of Thrones?
I mean, have you read any of, like, the Brothers Grimm stuff? So, I mean, people die all the time.
Austin, we just want a moment. Every once in a while, we get one moment, okay, on this show to not... It's not even that we're happy. It's that we're not depressed. But enough of that nonsense. We're going to have to talk about more of this later. I need to hear from my other co-host. Sir, introduce yourself.
I'm Daniel Stoll, and I'm sorry to say, Sam, but Mari has spoken, and you are the father.
I'm sure Sam is surprised to know this, given that the child was there before anything ever happened. I think he'd have a legal case.
Well, hey, you can't argue with the results.
That's it. Law and Order time, ladies and gentlemen. We're on to a whole new show.
Where's Judge Judy? We need her.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are the Cast Beyond the Wall, and we are here this year podcasting along with our friends and gracious hosts at the Good Trash Media Network. Now, the Good Trash Media Network is a website that I've been a part of since the inception at the beginning of this year. And I am very thrilled to be bringing this podcast to my home and my workplace. Now, what is Good Trash Media? It's a website that's dedicated to the film and TV watching experience and taking the conversation beyond just your experience and onto whatever mobile device you happen to be carrying. Why? Because at Good Trash Media, we believe that TV and film are so much more than 90 minutes and a bucket of popcorn, or in this case, 60 minutes and a glass of Dornish wine. You can track all of our posts on the Good Trash social media pages at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia or hit us up on Twitter at good_trash. Why? Because I really want to talk to you guys out there, your listeners. What did you think of this episode? What did you guys think of Oathbreaker? I need to know. I want to hear. I want to converse. Let's talk. Let's be friends. So go on over to goodtrashmedia.com and leave some feedback there or on those social media pages. Well, we've got the introductions out of the way, so I think it's time we go ahead and head into our review of Season 6, Episode 3, Oathbreaker.
They think you're some kind of god.
If the girl is truly no one, she has nothing to fear.
Why have you come to Winterfell?
I've got a gift for you.
If someone is planning on making our losses their gains, I want to hear it.
And now it begins.
Now it ends.
All right, so let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. We're going to give some initial impressions, and we're going to go in depth here in a second and do our scene-by-scene recap. But at first, I really want to hear our thoughts on the episode. We're going to start with you, Mr. Daniel Stoll. What did you think of this week's episode, Oathbreaker?
I thought it was a pretty solid episode. It definitely slowed down the pace from last week's episode, which is fine. They can't all be at that level. There's a lot of setup again for different storylines that are going to be happening throughout this season. We got to see really awesome flashback. I'm really excited about to talk about that with you guys. I actually really liked Arya's stuff this week, so that'll be an interesting conversation to have. And I didn't really like Dan. I'm really starting to not like Dany's storyline. I don't think I like where they're going with it. Maybe they're going to surprise me, but I think that was a little bit let me down a little bit this week. But overall, I thought it was a pretty great episode.
Pretty solid. So Soul's giving me a solid. I'm hearing that it was decent, but not great.
Right. Yeah.
Austin, tell this man why he's wrong. I need to know.
I don't know if I disagree with him, but what I do have to say is I think I'm a little bit higher on it than he is in comparison to episodes from previous seasons. I think it's continuing a trend that we've seen this season that I, for one, am extremely excited about, where we're seeing a more feverish pace from the creators of the show. Things are kind of moving along more quickly than when they were kind of sticking more stringently to the books. And that has me excited. I love, the previous seasons. They've been fantastic, but I think often at times the past couple seasons we've kind of looked and like, how are they ever going to finish this in time? Like, how many more seasons are going to need, because everything kind of seems up in the air. I think really we're seeing momentum, things happening on a regular basis. This one probably not quite as eventful as the previous episode, but still, I think we're seeing a lot of action and a lot of things moving forward, even with montages put into place to speed things along a little bit, as Caleb predicted in a previous podcast.
What did I say? Did I say there was going to be a montage or what? I told you. Montage.
You're right.
I swear to God, we got the montage out of the way. Let's move on to some real story. That's all I bet. That's my only plea. Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought this was a great episode, guys. I don't know what you guys, what show you guys were watching. No, it didn't have as many WTF or holy shit moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that big thing happened, like it did last week. But you know what this did have that last week didn't have? A lot of just really, really great kind of conversations. People talking to each other, making deals behind each other's backs, the politicking. A lot of that going on. In this episode, and that is probably one of, if not my favorite thing about Game of Thrones, at least from a writing perspective, is just when you put all these characters in a scenario and they just talk, and the tension's all there. Great scene from two different small councils this week. Both of them I really, really enjoyed. I loved the flashback. We're going to talk in depth about it here in a little bit, but I thought it was excellent. Other than the fact that it got cut just about 5 minutes too short, and I feel like I'm being strung along. But outside of that, really, really well done. Now, to Daniel's point, I felt better about Arya's storyline this week. I did not feel better about Daenerys' storyline this week. I'm honestly kind of like back to that. It's almost like back to season 2.
Yeah,
because she got some cool stuff to do in season 3, and even in season 4 before got kind of boring. Now I'm just past the point of being bored and on to the point of, oh my God, I don't really care what's going on with this storyline at all. I think it's just got more to do with and in some ways, I do wonder if we're retreading ground just a little bit.
They could have done this a year ago.
Well, I feel like they've already done it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have already done it. And that's my point. I'm just like, really? Well, I mean, and yes, Austin, they could have done it at any time, apparently. Because I'm ready for it to move on, and that storyline just feels like it's killing time until eventually she finds an excuse to get to Westeros.
I think we had an important first this week, though. For the first time ever, we got to see Jon Snow's butt, everybody. All right? How excited are we now? 100% more Jon Snow butt in this show.
This is what I put up with every single week.
I mean, my wife was not disappointed.
I mean, neither was I. Come
on. No comment. Although I will say that you were not the only person to notice that, Austin. So, all right. Well, enough of that, though. I think overall we're looking at I think this is a pretty good episode. I think I put it on par with last week for different reasons, though, very different reasons. And regardless, I think Austin's right. The pacing here is still rapid fire compared to what we're used to getting, especially in like seasons 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and head into our kind of recap scene by scene, and let's go ahead and get this out of the way early. Daenerys' storyline. No, I didn't like it. I guess she's actually not being taken to the old folks / I don't know, widow's home. What do you call it? This is just kind of sad. She's now on trial, so apparently the Council of Cows are trying to decide her fate. I guess.
I mean,
well, they could decide to still send her there, right? That's my understanding. Is they could, while she is on trial, they could determine that she's going to just be there like the rest of them, right?
Right, and that's what I was saying. Like, she could be on trial. I don't know. It's just another thing that God's like, yeah, you'll just go to this place. And now it's like, oh, well, actually, we don't know if you're going to go to this place. Now there's stakes. You could be, I don't even know what could happen to you. Something could happen to you. But it's going to be bad.
She's done nothing for 2 seasons, let's be honest here, with the notable exception of riding away on a dragon, which was pretty damn cool.
And it's pretty cool, but that's still Flash. Like her that's like, you can't just give me that without any real meaning or momentum. And I feel like that's what we got.
All she's done for the past couple of weeks is list off her titles and try to suppress her anger. That's basically it. Nothing has happened. Now, I'm hoping that the show creators are merciful. They don't make us sit through a whole nother stupid trial scene. We've seen these over and over and over again. I think everyone pretty much thinks that she's going to ride away on a dragon again, or the dragon's going to play a huge role in her being released. I don't know what's going to happen. I just want them to get on with it at this point. It's getting a little silly with her entire storyline.
Well, like we said, me and Caleb were talking about at the beginning, we've already seen some of this stuff, where she's being mistreated, she's having her clothes ripped off, and she's still being haughty anyway, and the people don't care. We've seen all this before. Back in season 2, she's still almost making the same decisions. It doesn't really seem like she's even learned something from that kind of thing. So I'm kind of frustrated with that. Hopefully they're going somewhere with this, but right now I feel like it's just we're retreading the old stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. And I just let's get on with it already. I don't need more of Daenerys wandering around the wilderness now. She is being held hostage by Dothraki, which again was a season 1 thing. I did think that the kind of motherly figure that was talking to Daenerys was kind of cool because, kind of seeing a matriarchal society in Game of Thrones. We don't see that very often. So that was kind of cool, I guess. But otherwise, yeah, we're checking in with Daenerys, and I don't think there's really anything too exciting going on there. Now, onto the far more interesting part of the Mereen storyline this week. We get a great scene with Varys, where he's talking to... So if you guys remember, the prostitute who we saw helping murder the Unsullied last season came back up, and Varys has her number, knows she has a son, and then threatens her without threatening her, and then bribes her to give him information. Now, the scene was great. I loved the scene. I don't think the ends or the information he got was really that valuable, but it was a cool scene. I mean, especially since we really haven't had too many solo Varys scenes. Really, he's always playing up against like another really, really formidable Game of Thrones character versus by himself with this kind of basic, I don't want to say nobody, but like a small supporting character. Did you guys enjoy the scene?
I did enjoy the scene. It was a very big break from what the people in Mereen are used to dealing with in Dany. Dany was very much like, no, you're going to tell me what I want to know because I'm the boss here and I'm in charge, so you just tell me. And that didn't really work in Mereen. I think Varys' tactics are probably a bit more effective. I thought it was funny that he claims that he's not a torturer. I think we've already seen him to be a torturer when he had that man locked in a box. In probably, I think, season 3 or 4 it was. But overall, I think this type of trend that we're going to see from Varys and from Tyrion, a more compassionate, it's kind of winning the hearts and minds, if you want to use American military terms, for Mereen, of the people, and really trying to find out, who's, in this case, who's funding them, which I think came to no surprise when we found out who it was. Young Kai Volantis asked for. I think that wasn't really shocking. They're all her enemies, and they're powerful people with a lot of money. So it wasn't really surprising to find out who it actually was.
No, it wasn't very surprising to me either. But it was a very cool scene to watch. I mean, when Varys talks, it's always really fun to listen to him. I really liked his line where he said that, I'm not a torturer. And even though some people deserve it, it often gives answers, but often the wrong ones. I thought that was a kind of a cool statement to think about it in that sense. And so he thinks that this is the right way to get the real answers and not the wrong ones. So I thought it was kind of cool to dip into his philosophy on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I really do like the questioning of the ethics behind torture. That's kind of on the underlying, it's in the underbelly of the scene. And I really dig that a lot. hey, torturing people, you torture someone enough, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Doesn't mean it's actually correct information.
Yes, you're right there. But he does say, yeah, I'm not going to torture you, but I will kill you.
Well, no,
You don't tell me what I need to know.
I don't think he said he was going to kill her. He implied that he was going to let her go, but then she also made the statement that, yeah, but once they find out I talked to you, I'm a dead woman. But here's the thing. It leads to the information that, hey, look, the masters from other cities are funding the Sons of the Harpy. Surprise? Question mark? Did anyone not see that coming? I mean, at this point, I thought that was a given. I would really like to see some sort of face of the organization or something at least. I think at this point there's a reason they're keeping it under wraps, and I think it's gonna be a surprise when we find out who's behind it. I'd like to think, just based on the fact that we don't know yet, and I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe it won't be someone we know already at all. But it just seems kind of weird that they're holding that information out at this point, and that in the scene that they would just say, "Huh." Well, the masters are funding them. Well, of course, we're the audience. Of course, they're funding them. No, duh. Where else would they get those kind of resources? That's like saying, well, guess who's funding the Justice League? Bruce Wayne. I bet you didn't see that one coming, huh?
Well, it was totally inconsequential too, because as Tyrion said, okay, they're funding them. What can we do about that? Absolutely nothing. We can't go there and stop them. We have to solve our problems within our own city, and try to make it work through the means that we've already kind of started establishing, through a bit more compassionate approach than they're used to seeing from Dany. So yeah, they got the information they wanted. It didn't end up accounting for much of anything.
Inconsequential. Sums up Dany's storyline altogether.
It does. This past 2 years has been pretty much inconsequential, unfortunately. Except for the dragons.
There have been cool things like dragons, but still inconsequential. We'll go ahead and go on to the next scene, but I do want to say I did really enjoy that bit of conversation Tyrion had between Grey Worm and Melisandre. Like, it's just goes to show you how he has absolutely nothing in common with these people. Like, he's like a this rich. He's like a son of a rich lord, a head of a house. Very well-read, diplomatic mind, talking to a soldier who's been breeded to kill, and then a slave. It's like, so, let's talk.
I go on patrol. I talk about what they did on patrol. Obama's not a conversationalist. This is basically what it came.
This guy's the anti-Obama, Austin. Obama's a great conversationalist. This is the Westerosi Obama, not quite as outgoing as actual Obama.
Tyrion just needs to learn some new games, man. Like, he needs to figure out a different game besides the silly drinking game he knows about, revealing each other's dark past.
So, moving on to still across the Narrow Sea, we're gonna go ahead and hit on Braavos. And guys, we did another check-in with Arya this week, and it was a check-in, but progress actually felt like it was being made. Instead of her still hanging out in the street, she actually is getting trained. Ra's al Ghul, League of Shadows training, legitimately. I mean, she inhaled the blue flower thing and everything, a fear toxin. And just like Bruce Wayne in the mountain, flashing back, remembering her past, and erasing it. I mean, come on. This is like training 101. I actually really dug the scene. It did everything we needed to do for the last 3 episodes in like 2 minutes, effectively. And it was cool. And I just really, really hope that it goes somewhere next week. Because if I get another time killer episode with Arya, I'm gonna get disappointed in the storyline again. But no, that was really cool. How she basically is sacrificing her identity to get her eyesight back. She had to sacrifice her identity. The question is, did she really sacrifice Arya Stark, or is Arya Stark still in there? That's the question I'm interested to see. To how deep into her self-consciousness does the training reach? I'm really interested to see where this goes, though. I just really hope it goes somewhere soon.
I mean, I think it was like kind of a dumb, pointless scene that just kind of touched on stuff that we've touched on all last year. I don't think it really moved her character forward any at all. I don't believe that she's truly like lost the Arya Stark in her. I think there is probably, she still has more Arya in her than Reek does with Theon and him. But I'm grateful that they moved it along. They did it quickly because they could have spent a whole other season dragging this all out again, like they did last season. Ultimately, not much came of it. I was really disappointed they gave her eyesight back. I thought it made her a more interesting character when she was blind. It kind of felt a little fairy tale-ish just to have like, everything's a happy ending now. This is great. Look where we're at. We're in Game of Thrones.
Honestly, what should have happened in the first episode with her would just remind us where is she coming from, where's she at, and where's she going to go next. And I thought this scene very effectively communicated all of that. And I don't think it was robbing her of her blind sight. I mean, honestly, she probably shouldn't have gone blind in the first place. But it's magic. Just like the Faceless Men are incredibly magic. They always have been. They always will be. There's not really any need for explanation. And I still think it came at a cost to some extent.
I don't see that cost yet. Maybe we'll see it more for going forward. Maybe she is less Arya than she was before. Maybe she no longer recognizes her family when she does finally meet up with them, because I think she will. That's going to be the real test going forward, when she finally sees Jon Snow or sees Bran or sees Sansa. What does she do? How does she react? Who is she at that point? Is she still Arya or is she nobody? I think she's still Arya. I think ultimately this was all kind of, I don't know, time filler. I think it would have been more interesting had she remained blind.
And done what?
Because and done what? I just think it would be interesting to see how a blind person navigates the world of Westeros and tries to accomplish the things she wants to accomplish.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see where it goes next week. I really hope it goes somewhere though, because I can't deal with another season of her just hanging out. So let's get on with it. And now we're not going to go all the way across the Narrow Sea. We're going to go to the Narrow Sea. And Austin, what did you think about this scene? This scene on the Narrow Sea, you see the boat riding in a storm. You're like, oh my god, it's an epic ship. Something cool is about to happen. The pirates are going to come with their tongues cut out, and then bam, it's Gilley. What's up?
I really did think it was Yara. I really did. I thought this is going to be sweet, some more Greyjoy action, and then sure enough, we just have like Sam puking in a bucket. And you know what? I felt the same as Sam in that when I was watching that scene. I really did.
Because you were seasick?
I was just sick to my stomach upon seeing Sam and Gilley.
I mean, come on, Austin. We didn't see him for 3 whole episodes, because they weren't in the last.
I know. It was amazing. I thought they just went the way of Gendry and like just rode off into nowhere. But
oh no,
yeah, there they are.
They are far too important for that, Austin.
It was a check-in scene, right? We didn't really like see. There was no like new information really in this scene. We did see a little bit,
just that they're going to Hornhill, but I mean that's not significant.
Which we kind of knew. We kind of knew anyway. We knew they were heading to Old Town to go so he could become a maester. Which, whatever. I guess he'd never become a maester in time before the White Walkers overrun everything. So I don't know how that would even matter.
How do you know, Austin? I mean, if Arya can become an uber badass in like one whole scene, I think Sam can do it even faster.
It's true. He probably could. Because George R. R. Martin loves Sam, and Sam can do anything. No, we don't really get a lot here. We see a good interaction between Sam and Gilley as far as like they are bonding, growing a little bit closer together. She even calls Sam the father of the child, which is kind of a really a new thing. Even though he's kind of been tried to take care of them as much as he can, he's never really been considered the father. So we see that. Aside from that, I think what we're going to see going forward is Sam is going to go to the Citadel. He is never going to be a maester. There's not enough time for him to become a maester, but he is going to find out some new information. And that new information is going to be enlightening to us as the viewers as to about dragons or how to defeat the White Walkers or something like that. But he's going to be very integral into discovering the information that's going to really aid in the coming fight, I think.
Huh. That's an interesting thought, Austin. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I don't really have much to say about the scene, I'll be honest. Like you said, it's a check-in scene. Just establish where they're going, and I probably wouldn't be surprised if we don't see them for another couple episodes, to be truthful. And I'm okay with that because, again, I read the book, and there's a whole lot of nothing going on in that entire storyline.
Yeah.
Literally, they're on that boat for an entire book, and they have sex, and Sam feels guilty about it. End of story. That's the whole book until you get to the end, like the very end.
The last paragraph.
Well,
the
no,
last
it's
paragraph
not.
is a nice one.
No, well, it's more than just a paragraph. But yeah, it's like
is it extra spicy sex?
yeah. So, but I want to go ahead and move on because I don't really want to spend too much time belaboring Samwell this week.
Let's please move on.
In that case, actually, I still it's totally slipped my mind. I had this crucial, pivotal piece of information I think we need to analyze with Sam. Did you see the way his beard looked in that scene?
Oh God, yeah, it was.
I felt like he probably you probably shaved just trimmed it down a little bit, and it really looked nice.
God, make it stop.
Such a sexy beard. You know what looks sexier than that beard, though? King's Landing. King's Landing looked real great this week, right? As we get to meet Qyburn again. And now, for those of you who don't remember, Qyburn was introduced back in season 3 as the kind of banished, expelled Maester who fixed Jaime's hand after it had been cut off. And also, more notoriously, the man who brought us Franken-Clegane. And so basically we see that Qyburn is now trying really hard to be the new Varys. He's giving candy to children so that they will feed him whispers.
Stranger danger.
I know, that's what I was saying the whole time. Stranger danger. I mean, it was a fun little tidbit, but I think the more interesting bit is when Jaime walks down with Cersei and Franken-Clegane. They're just like, what did you do to this guy? And he's just like, many things. And then we basically see that Cersei is already plotting her next move. No surprise there. And she is still, despite the High Sparrows being a problem, it still looks like she is making a push to take the Tyrells down.
Birds everywhere.
I mean, yeah, I don't think Qyburn's ever going to be as effective as Varys was in the spying thing. I think he's a little new to this. He's a bit of an amateur. But it is interesting that they're establishing a means that Cersei's going to find out information. They're actually setting it up, how she's going to find out all this stuff without Varys being around anymore. So yeah, not a lot going on here. Just establishing that Cersei's still angry, that Jaime's on her side, and that Qyburn's still relevant, I guess.
Also, it's kind of funny. I thought it was funny that Jaime was kind of like a hothead. He was like, order him to go smash the High Sparrow's head right now. That's the answer. Is just go kill them all. So that was kind of funny.
I did really love the way Jaime was looking at Clegane the whole time. It was pretty hysterical. He just was in shock and a disbelief that this was a walking person. And I also think it's great that we just decided to drop the whole call him Sir Strong or whatever, Sir Robert Strong. We're just going to go ahead and say, yeah, that's Gregor Clegane. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Did they ever call him that?
Yeah.
They never called him that, did they?
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as he was introduced, he was Sir Robert Strong.
Oh, that's dumb. Why even bother then?
Qyburn called him that in the season 5 finale.
So it seems like the creators probably had a change of heart in how they were going to handle that. Probably.
I guess I really don't know. I mean, that is the book material. I don't really know. Exactly why they changed it, and maybe I think the Robert Strong is just kind of the official face. Officially that's who he is. On paper, but everyone knows he's Clegane, and then everyone knows that Qyburn did very strange things to bring him back from the dead. Now, I think the more interesting scene we get here though is the small council, which I really enjoyed the scene a whole lot. So Jeremy and Cersei walk in with Clegane. Right as Pycelle is dishing on Qyburn and calling him not saying nice things about Qyburn. And it was just a lot of fun because he basically gets caught with his pants down. And then he's like, oh, hey, Clegane's here.
Qyburn farts. Or not Qyburn, sorry. Did you see Pycelle farts in that scene?
See, that's the question, though. Was it him or was it
Mace?
Or was it Mace?
Somebody
you don't know.
In that scene.
Mace looks like a pretty gassy dude. Kevin Lannister is working with Mace Tyrell and Lady Olenna. So Kevin Lannister, who is the official head of the Lannister household, is in with the Tyrells, trying to make sense of what's going on. And Jaime, in his arrogant Jaime fashion, raises a good point. Hey guys, they killed my daughter, the Queen's daughter, the King's sister, and they've taken over Dorne. We're just going to let that go? Really? Oh, yeah. And by the way, the Queen's still locked up. We're just going to let that go. And of course, these people all blow him off. Totally. I think he raises a good point. Although the problem is Cersei is still the one pulling the strings. So you know how that goes. But I quite enjoyed this scene. I also enjoyed how there was a legitimate argument. They were trying to find a reason why, the head of the Kingsguard what shouldn't be in the small council. Just a lot of fun. It was like one of those classic Game of Thrones small council scenes, I thought.
Also, Lady Olenna giving one of her epic one-liners was freaking awesome. I was really glad to see her there. Hopefully, we'll see more of her because I always have enjoyed watching her. So it was cool to see her. But yeah, it was really cool watching. It's basically seems like it's going to be Jaime and Cersei and Clegane versus the world almost, though, because they didn't really get much accomplished.
Sounds like a great spin-off series.
I was thinking that originally, I mean, we talked about this a little before, that the Lannisters were going to team up with the Tyrells, but that does, I mean, and they are in some sense. Tywin's brother is kind of teaming up with them, but definitely not Cersei. She's not game for working with Olenna on this, and Olenna vice versa there. So I guess they're going to have to find support from somebody else.
I think that I thought that Cersei was going to have a fairly easy time of getting revenge, but I think this sets up that it's not going to be as easy as even she thinks it is to get back at the High Sparrow. And she's going to have to do a lot of work to get things. Well, maybe not a ton of work, but it's not going to be as easy as she thought.
Yeah, I guess she just thought she'd walk in there and be able to get the power, you know. And we should probably get the point, though. Kevin Lannister, I think, is going to be her biggest opponent in all of this. And it's just kind of a mess because there's just so much divide in the power, the political power in King's Landing, because you've got Jaime and Cersei. You've got the small council with Kevin and the Tyrells and Marjorie. And then you've got Tommen, who's doing his own thing. And then you've got the Sparrows who are rolling everything. It's just so, I mean, there's not really a unified body of power. And it's just a mess.
Which is weird for the Lannisters because usually that's their strong suits. They're always tight as a family. They're always together, but that's not the case right now.
Well, it's because it was Tywin.
That's true, but it's just the first time that we've seen in the show where the Lannisters are not a united front. Now, Cersei and Jaime are, but the family as a whole is not a united front, which they usually are in this show.
Mm-hmm. It's true. But we saw a little hint of that last year when Kevin first came in to play. I think we anticipated a little bit that they not all was happy within the Lannister household, particularly with Kevin. And right now he's holding all the cards. Cersei has no real power, and really Jaime doesn't either. They have no allies aside from Littlefinger, who's kind of far away, and that's kind of
Littlefinger's not their ally
anyway. Right, but I mean they've worked together a little bit. That's all, really.
Littlefinger's nobody's and everybody's ally at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, Littlefinger did kill her son, even though she was in on it. We all know that.
Oh my God.
We're not going back to that, Austin.
Let it go.
They don't have a lot of friends right now. They really don't. All they have is Franklin Clegane, and he apparently can't kill 100 people, even though I have my doubts about that statement. I think he probably could.
I am interested to see where this goes. I think we're just going to continue to see a shift in power for the remainder of the season. Now, what I want to look at here is that final scene in King's Landing where we get a glimpse of High Sparrow talking to Tommen. Apparently, Tommen decided to man up like a little bit. Quote unquote, man up.
No, he didn't.
He marched in there and talked to the High Sparrow by himself. And by himself, I mean he still had troops. But he stood up to him a little bit and was like, listen, dude, you did this to my mom. Her sins should be forgiven by now. And he's like, yeah, bro, she's lying to you. I'm not saying she's evil, but she's a liar. And until she fesses up, her sins are not forgiven. So that's basically the whole point of that scene, I figure. And I think and the High Sparrow is trying really hard to get in Tommen's head as well.
I mean, all this hate that people have had for Ollie needs to switch over to Tommen because how can you not be mad at this guy right now?
Why?
No, I wasn't mad at him.
Because he won't do anything. He's the king. He's just sitting there
he actually
doing
did
nothing.
something this week, though. That was my whole point.
Yeah, he walked in and raised his voice, and then he sat down on the bench.
That's more than he did last year. He's making progress, though. Ollie was reverse progress.
Not enough progress.
No, I mean you're right. You're right, Daniel. And, I mean he did exactly what Tywin always said a king should never do, which is proclaim I am the king. And he walked in there, said I'm the king, and then rolled over basically for the High Sparrow. He didn't really show a ton of leadership there, and definitely showed that he's still a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. He is just a kid, and I don't hate him, but I don't like. I feel like he's just a waste of a king right now, kind of.
Give us Joffrey back.
I mean, Joffrey was a man of action. That's what we can say about Joffrey.
I read this great article the other day talking about why Game of Thrones hasn't been the same since Joffrey bit it, and I can't say it was. I don't think the show is lesser, but I certainly think it's different. And the writer had a good point, but yeah, no, Joffrey totally would have. We said this last year too. Joffrey would have totally marched in there and killed all these dudes. You know, it's just yeah.
Yeah, he would have had no problem with that. I think he could have accomplished it too. For whatever you want to say about Joffrey, he was a competent killer.
But okay, so do we think anything was really accomplished in the scene at all, or is this just more? I really think this is High Sparrow, more about High Sparrow playing mind games with Tommen than anything.
Which, by the way, I call BS on all of that. Like, he says, we all need to bring the good out in people. What good has he brought out in anyone?
I mean, he's burning. Come on.
I mean, at first I kind of bought his sort of like, it's what the gods want, maybe a little, but no. That's just like after, it's just gone. Like, he's just full of it. And it's time for his downfall to happen.
I mean, I don't think he doesn't believe what he's saying. I just think he's using his faith as a weapon, essentially. And
I'm not convinced he fully believes it anymore.
I think he does. He just knows how to use it. I really do think he believes it, though. That's what makes him dangerous.
I never thought he believed it. I didn't think he believed it from the beginning. I thought he just was using it as a tool to gain power, just like anybody else does in this show.
I think it's both.
But like, I don't think he actually believes any of the crap that comes out of his mouth.
Like, he's not like Melisandre, where Melisandre clearly actually believes in the Lord of Light.
Right. I believe that Melisandre believes what she's saying far more so than the High Sparrow. I think High Sparrow's putting on a show.
Yeah.
There are theatrics, but I still think at his core he believes in a lot of this stuff. That's how he showed up in the first place. Like, it wasn't like he's like, oh, if I act all spiritual, all of a sudden I can take King's Landing. It was one of those things. He was a man of faith. People started to follow him, and he really quickly gained a lot of power. And now he's using that power, using his weapon as a means to attack people. I don't think it's that he disbelieves it, though.
How do you? I don't know. I mean, when we met him, he already had a lot of power, right? So I don't know if it really established how he got it. I mean, he kind of told us a little bit. But I think it's all a show, all theatrics.
Okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, he says, like, all these things, but then he follows like none of what he actually says.
Right.
So that's why for me it's like hard to like his statement at the end, like, we should all help bring the good out of people. Like, he hasn't done that once in this show.
He thinks he is.
No, he thinks he is. Though. No, all he did was have a bunch of people carve symbols, satanic symbols, into their head, and then run around with clubs. That's all he's done. He's no better than Cersei or anyone else.
I don't know. I still think he believes it. Okay. He just sees carving the foreheads as a way to bring the good out of people, Austin. Have you tried it? Austin?
I mean, I haven't gone to like a Pantera concert or anything lately.
Yeah. So see, you can't say. Maybe I need to go. I want to go interview these people who have the sign carved to their heads. They might be better people for it. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Let's go ahead and jump right into my favorite scene of the week, which was we caught up with Bran, and we saw a flashback to the famous Tower of Joy. Now, this is famous among book readers. Now, this is a scene that we were introduced to in book 1, if you're a book reader, where Ned Stark is getting very high off of milk of the poppy while he's been, he gets very high off the milk of the poppy, and like has that little weird sort of kind of a dream sequence that's kind of like a flashback where he remembers kind of what was going on, and he kind of thinks about like how remembers how it went down. Now, what we saw here was not how he remembered it going down. We saw something a little different. And so, basically, the Tower of Joy is Lyanna Stark, quick little reminder to our listeners, was Robert Baratheon pledged to Lyanna Stark. Rhaegar Targaryen, quote-unquote, kidnaps Lyanna Stark because he loves her, apparently. Kidnaps her, takes her away. Ned and Ned teams up with the Baratheons and all of the Eyrie, all the northern houses. They march south to take out the Mad King. Essentially, they were all upset at the king anyway, but this was really what set it off. Now, Lyanna Stark taken and locked up, and during the war, taken and locked up in the Tower of Joy. So what we actually saw was after the battle. Like, this is actually after the war is over, essentially. They have already... Ned and Robert have already won the war. But Ned gathered up 5 of his bannermen and rode over to try and get Lyanna back. Now, those 4 guys were all supposed to be Kingsguard defending Lyanna Stark. Now, the show only plays up one of them, and honestly, only one of them is the ones we're talking about, and that is Sir Arthur Dayne, who is one of the most legendary fighters in all of Westeros, and they did not disappoint with this guy on the show. Holy crap, man. The way he was using these swords, holy shit. I mean, it was super impressive, and all practical, all the choreography, flawless. Super awesome scene. And I also really liked that callback we got to the beginning of season 5, if you remember when Mance Rayner, the last thing he said before he died was, "I wish you good fortune in the wars to come." And the same thing said by Arthur Dayne right before they go into this big kind of duel scene. I thought it was super, super cool. What did you guys make of the scene?
Yeah, it was a really awesome scene. And what I really liked about this scene is, you see the difference in what, history has it that Ned won this great victory. And that's not really how it played out. And I think that's really cool how Game of Thrones is showing us that all the things that we've been told in history are maybe not exactly as they happened. History is told from the perspective of the winner. So we get to see maybe a different perspective here. I really love how they're doing these flashbacks with Bran, how it's from a third-party perspective in a sense. So I think that's really cool. But I think this is, even though it's a minor detail that Ned didn't win the way that everyone said that he did, I think that's key to showing us the history is not exactly what we think it is, and is probably foreshadowing some other things that we've been told is the history, and it's going to be different. Well, so I really enjoyed that aspect to it.
Well, in other words, the myth of Ned Stark, the most honorable man in Westeros, might not have been so honorable, right?
Or he's willing to lie for what he believes is a good cause. So yeah, he lies, and in a sense, he protects Howland Reed's honor a little bit by saying he didn't stab. He never jumped in and didn't stab him in the back. He didn't tell that part of the story. It also protects his own honor, but he's willing to lie in that certain situation. And we've seen him lie before in the show. It didn't really matter. If you think back to season 1, when Robert was on his deathbed and Ned was writing, he changes what Robert's statement is, and it didn't really matter, but that's another time we see him lie in the show. So it shows that it's just reminding us of that, and it's probably going to play into whatever is going to happen in the tower.
So I think one, as far as Ned Stark goes and kind of his honor, I think they've well established at this point that Ned is not as honorable as everyone always said he was. They established that in season 1 when they talk about Jon Snow and how Catelyn at least believes, and most people believe, that he's Ned's bastard and that Ned was unfaithful to Catelyn Stark during the war. Obviously, and we've talked about this many times before, that is questionable. We don't really believe that that's how everything went down, but the show has established before that Ned may be not as honorable as previously thought. So this whole thing with Ned didn't actually win the fight. Whatever. It's not really that surprising to me. What is cool is this is one of the best fight scenes we've ever seen in this show, and frankly, one of the best fight scenes we've ever seen on the screen.
Yeah, just a good old sword fight.
Just fantastic choreography. We were talking about this, kind of previously privately a little bit. I compared it to the fight with Darth Maul in episode 1, except the difference being that in those Star Wars fights, and a lot of Star Wars fights, you see a lot of flourishes and a lot of excessive twirling for no reason.
What are you talking about?
There wasn't any of that. In this, there was a lot of twirling, but it all had a purpose. They were doing things. He was parrying. He was blocking. Frankly, the choreography was just freaking phenomenal. The other thing that we noticed in this scene, aside from just being a great fight scene, is presumably Lyanna Stark is in the Tower. That's what we're being told, or it's at least being implied. And we hear screaming, and it really does sound like the screaming of childbirth. It really, really does. And that starts to fall into the theories that we've talked about in the past. That Lyanna Stark, spoilers, anyone who may not want to listen to this.
It's still a theory. It's not a spoiler, okay?
Right. Well, it's not really a spoiler, but if you don't really want to know this type of speculation, which I think is becoming more and more likely by the episode. Anyway, the Lyanna Stark is giving birth basically to Jon Snow. Jon Snow is Lyanna and Rhaegar Targaryen's son, that he is part Targaryen. And I think that is becoming more and more likely with every passing episode. The more times we mention Lyanna, the more times we mention Rhaegar, the more times that Jon Snow does totally unbelievable things that makes him like ever more important. It's all building up to this fantastic fan theory that's been around for a very, very, very long time. And it's proving so far, everything's looking to be very, like it's dead on. I'm excited to see the conclusion of this scene. Caleb, I know you were pretty frustrated with how they ended this scene. And I agree. It was frustrating. They're trying to drag it out.
Such a tease. Such a tease. And I mean, it's hard to call it a. I don't. No, I think it is a. It's impatience as a viewer, right? But I just don't like being. It's such a tease. Crying. You know where it's heading, and then they're like, "Oh, whoa, we gotta leave. We gotta hang out." I gotta get there.
That's the thing.
And then we're just like Bran. He's like, "I just want to go back." Yeah, it's almost like they're taunting us. But yeah.
It really is. It's unlike other scenes where, time has to pass in order for things to happen. No, we're right there in the scene. Things can happen right now. You're choosing through some sort of plot device to not reveal it right now, which is ridiculous. And that's totally a choice to drag it out, to build the excitement, build the tension by the show creators. I disagree with that and the way they've done it. Especially when that theory's been out there for so long, and all you have to do at this point is confirm it, and just like it's not really going to be surprising when it finally happens. It's not going to be mind blowing for a lot of viewers who already know about this.
I do think we have to at least mention one point is the part at the end where Bran shouts out "Father" and Ned turns around, and there's that whole Bran thinks that his father hurt him. What do you guys think about that? I like they made a big enough deal about it to make me think that maybe there's something to that.
Well, I think there's definitely something to that, and I think it's because they're using the power of like the magic and the weirwood. It's less so at this point. I'm not sure how this works exactly. In the books, at least, it seems like he's using the weirwood trees, and there's also a very distinct scene in the books where he's like in the big. It's like he's like the big tree watching over Ned, right? And he's shouting on him, and like Ned stops and looks at it. This is a similar scene that is a little more difficult to explain because at least from our perspective, there's not a weirwood tree anywhere nearby. But it is interesting that maybe Bran's powers, because he does have magical powers. Let's be frank; like there's no way around it. There are magical powers. That maybe Ned Stark can't hear them now. I don't think, unlike what Bran wants to do, I do think that 3-eyed Raven guy is right. You can't change the past. The ink is dried. You can't. It's already happened, so you can't change it. But that does not mean he can't. That does not mean he can't to some degree. Still, it does not mean to some degree he can't impact the events that have already happened.
I think I disagree with that. He can't change the past. I think he cannot impact what has already happened.
But maybe...
I think what he might be able to do is interact with spirits, essentially. He can talk to ghosts. I think that's what this implies. And he can find out information from them. But doesn't mean he can change anything that's already happened.
No, I don't think it's that. I'm not saying he can change things that have already happened. I'm saying that maybe him being able to use that power will cause things to happen that have already happened. That gets into time travel logic, and I don't want to go there because, man, that's a rabbit hole. But what I'm saying is that essentially, he has already had an impact on things that have happened already. Theoretically, I don't want to get into that mess because it hasn't. We haven't.
I don't think so. I think it's all a projection. I think he just is interacting with like a hologram, more or less. and that he can talk to spirits and he can find out information from them, but has no bearing on anything aside from him learning information.
Sure. I'll roll with that because I mean maybe he gets his powers because he can talk to the dead, people who are buried or burned. Ned Stark was what happened to his body? Oh, they sent it back to Winterfell. So I don't know, maybe But enough of that, though. I mean, we're going to come back to this scene, obviously. That we're going to come back to this exact scene, and this is why it's annoying. We're going to come back to this exact scene at this exact moment in about 2 weeks, probably, and find out this information. I hope it's only 2 weeks. Good God, I don't want to wait longer than that.
Yeah.
But there was some other really, really eventful things happening in North. The least of which was Winterfell. Guys, guess who's back? Rickon Stark. He was being
called in, by the way.
Tonks had been escorting him away, and apparently they got captured. And I just want to.
Or we could call him Rickon, and he could be the new Reek.
Oh God, Austin, get out of his head. Get out of
anyway
his head, okay. I don't know. I feel like this is such a weird time to bring that character back. I'm not sure I dislike it. I just don't know where it's going, and I don't know what purpose it's going to serve. I guess because it's not like he can marry Rickon and have babies with Rickon, so it's not like he can have like a Stark heir that it could further reinforce his power in the North. But it is always good to have a Stark in your back pocket, I guess.
I'll tell you where it's going because I think you guys are missing a key line here. So if you guys pay attention, when Ramsey's talking to the guy, I don't even know who he was, the man, the Northernman, he says you were very loyal to the Starks. He makes that statement. So what this is they haven't captured Rickon. They're just pretending to have captured Rickon, and this is all a play. And really, this is this Northernman's plan to take over the Winterfell himself.
So why would he have killed him?
Yeah, that's the only
you gotta give evidence, right? You have to give evidence. So that was the evidence.
So they're just gonna kill a fucking dire wolf.
Hey man, they kill wolves all the time on this show.
But I mean, this is different.
I would honestly argue, Daniel, if it wasn't for the freaking dead wolf, I would actually roll with that theory because this guy, he says, yeah, you've always been loyal to the Starks. He refuses to bend the knee. He's a very stereotypical Northernman who swears up and down he's loyal to the Starks. And I did not for a second buy that he's like, Jon Snow is putting them wildlings in, so I turn to you. I didn't buy that. Don't buy that one bit. Do not buy that at all.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like this is a play, man. I feel like this is a play and that they're pretending to give him over to Ramsey, but
I think this is part of a long-term plan.
I do agree that the direwolf head shaggy dog is the one thing that I felt that way the whole time until they showed the dog. But I don't know. Let's just move past that, and that's what's happening. It's the Starks' comeback, man. This is their season.
Giant hole in my theory.
Just disregard that entirely. Don't even let it cross your mind. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Man, Jon's coming back. This is it, man. This is the Stark season.
I'm calling it now. By the end of the season, there's going to be a Stark back in Winterfell. Done. That's going to happen. I promise. I will bet something on it.
I mean, let's look at the scene here a little bit. Daniel, I think there's a lot of merit in what you're saying. I really do. I think it all hinges on the fact that maybe the dog head is fake.
Yeah, that's possible.
Okay, that's the only thing that would make that work for me. But I think there's a lot of merit to it. I think the Umbers are a particularly loyal house who don't give a fuck about anybody else. We see this guy in this scene.
By the way, I love this guy.
Is one of my new favorite.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, I freaking love him. He deserves to be in House Greyjoy. He is that good. Okay,
but he's a Stark. Then he wouldn't be. Then you wouldn't like him because he wouldn't be. He would be like a Greyjoy, which wouldn't be like a Stark guy.
Exactly.
But he behaves like a Greyjoy. He's like, I'm not going to bend the knee. And he literally calls everyone a bunch of cunts. Like, that's fantastic. This guy's great. He is one of my new favorite characters. And so to your point, Daniel, getting back to the point, he is not the type of character who is just going to hand things over to Ramsey. I don't think he's the type of character who has any quit in him at all. I think he is very much a fighter. I think he's going to fight till the end for his independence as House Umber. I I think there is a strong possibility that there is a bigger plan involved. I think Rickon is not really part of it, but I think House Umber might be. He might have killed the dog as part of his plan. I think Rickon is not happy about that situation. Aside from that, I think it's very likely that Jon Snow and Littlefinger both end up there at Rickon's side before too much
Yeah, that's
longer.
my thought. And I'm glad you mentioned Littlefinger. He still hasn't showed up. He's still AFK. He's still MIA. We haven't seen him yet this season. However, you know what this sounds like?
For sure.
Oh, he's getting back next week, and we'll get to that. But
For sure.
Austin, now you mentioned that. What if Littlefinger's behind this? He taps Umber. He finds out that Umber's got Rickon. I don't know how he finds out. I'm just saying there has to be a bigger plan. I'm just convinced I am on Soul's side. There has to be a bigger plan here. Littlefinger would kill the wolf to get Rickon in there as part of a bigger plan. And clearly the Umbers, while I do like this guy, they don't he doesn't project himself as much of a planner or a schemer. But this is a plan. Now, if it is in fact a scheme, it is a plan from a schemer. So either it's Littlefinger, because I think he does intend to take the North back, especially because we're going to find out that he heard about Sansa and all that good stuff. Yeah, something's going on there. Something. I don't know. Littlefinger's probably not behind it after. I don't know. But it feels like a Littlefinger plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're right. I find it a little hard to believe that House Umber would kill a direwolf. I think that's probably against their code. But Littlefinger absolutely would.
Right.
For the greater good of things. He had no problem with that.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead. That's interesting, but I can't wait to pick up that plot thread hopefully next week because I am really, really curious to see where I am super curious to see where that goes. But we need to move on to the big scene. Again, we're always ending this with Jon Snow, and I promise, guys, next week, unless Jon Snow does something crazy, we will talk about Jon Snow other than last. But we got to save him for last because he's had all the big talking points anyway. So Jon Snow is back from the dead, and guess what? Doesn't seem like he's too happy about it. He wakes up, and Braavos is there trying to help him out, and he has this really my favorite. I think the most impressive thing he did, and awesome acting from Kit Harington. Basically, he's like, I died for doing what I thought was right. I got stabbed by Ollie, and now I'm here. Like I think we're talking about hurt feelings, but the guy got killed by his closest. I mean, maybe not his closest friends, but people he trusted a lot, and that's gonna hurt a little bit. So I think he's not feeling great about it, and not to mention that I still don't think we've seen the full repercussions from what brought him from him coming back from the dead in the first place.
Yeah, I think they handled the scene really well. The show did. I thought it seemed really believable. None of us have experienced someone dying and coming back, but somehow it seemed real as it was going on. The way that Jon has this out of body experience where he's looking at the wounds. He's like, how am I alive? How am I alive? And Braavos is just and Melisandre as well are both looking at him with stunned faces. So I thought the show handled it really well. I thought all the actors did a really great job with this scene, making it seem believable in that sense. So I thought, I just think the scene went really well with his return right in that room.
Braavos had the best line of the night, though. You were dead, and now you're alive? That's fucking mad.
I agree with that statement. I think it was a really well executed scene. But I think for me the bigger takeaway was that he feels this deep sense of betrayal that no other character on the show we've ever seen, because no one else has been killed by his own dudes and come back to life. I don't know. I really felt that in his eyes when he was looking. I feel like that, and I feel like that was what we were supposed to take away from it more so than just he's back alive. It's he feels pretty bad about being back. He doesn't feel great about it. And then after him and Tommen have a great exchange, which God bless Tommen. I love that red bearded man.
Hold on real quick. I want to go back real quick. I did find it interesting. I really enjoyed Davos' line as well, where he said, "Good, you failed. Now let's go fail again." I thought that was really, really interesting. Almost talking to a little bit of a philosophy there, no matter you've died and you're back, and you still need to do try to do the right thing. Even though it's what cost you before, you still need to try and do it again because that's the right thing to do. So I thought that was really, really interesting line from him. I really enjoyed that.
Mr. Snow, what do we do when we fall? We pick ourselves back up.
What do we do when we die?
So much Batman. We gotta get away from the Batman. It's all over the place. Game of Thrones is just a blatant rip-off of Batman Begins. We all know.
Yep.
So yeah, now we go on and we see him get to interact with the wildlings and his friends and Ed, and then we get to the scene where he's got to look into the eyes of the men who stabbed him in the. Well, I want to say the back. They actually stabbed him in the chest, which is probably worse. Looking him dead in the eye when they stabbed him. And I actually thought we got a great final moment from Alliser Thorne. I really do. A character none of us really like, but I will say he's had moments in the show that I found where I respected him a lot more. And I remember if you go back and listen to our episode where we reviewed the episode that was the Battle of the Wall, whatever that was called, the 9th episode of season 4, he had a couple moments in that we're like, you know what? Maybe this guy, while we don't like him, we can respect him. And since then, I've had a sense of respect for him, although knowing that he was totally going to kill Jon as well. But there is a sense of respect. This is a man who believes in what he's doing. I can't say I blame him for doing things the way he did it, and that's why I liked his response. He says, if I had to do it over again, knowing I was going to die right here, I'd like to think I would do it again. Because his conviction is that, and his deepest belief is that letting the wildlings through is a big mistake, and he really truly believes that because it goes against his entire career in the Night's Watch. So naturally he believes that. Now, we obviously think, as Team Jon, Jon's looking at the bigger picture, and we all think Jon's right. But I will say there is some moral ambiguity there, and I really, really like that about...
Yeah, I mean, in every act of treason throughout history, right, everyone uses the same logic that Alliser Thorne used. And it was a treasonous act. Now, what is defined as treason and what is defined as revolution is dependent on who ended up winning. And in this case, Jon Snow won because he came back from the dead. So in this sense, Alliser Thorne is very much a treasonous individual, and is using that type of logic and that type of line. It's exactly what I expected from him. Given his previous actions, given the talk that he gave to everybody after he killed Jon Snow. I didn't think he'd ever go back or he'd feel apologetic about it at all. I think he would just resign to his fate and accept it. And that's exactly what he did in this scene.
Do you think he's respectable, though?
I mean, in some ways. I think he's short-sighted. I think he lacks the mental capacity to understand the bigger picture of things, as did everyone else who was hanging from that noose at the time. But is there an honorable tinge to what he did? Yes, I understand that.
Well, I mean, because let's just say Jon Snow didn't come back from the dead, though. I mean, was he right?
Then the wall would fall and everyone would die south of the wall.
And I don't think you're wrong. I just think it's an interesting question to pose because I think this is where Game of Thrones really does succeed in posing these morally ambiguous these moral conundrums where you have two worldviews that are incompatible, although both sides are kind of sort of correct. They're just not saying the same thing. They're not looking at things the same way, and it's not even that they can communicate about it. It's a fundamental incompatibility. And let's say Jon Snow kills Alliser Thorne, and Alliser Thorne comes back from the dead. You know what I mean? Like what separates these guys? I guess it's just something to think about.
When I first was thinking about this scene, I thought his statement was just really dumb, like stupid and dumb, and I really didn't think that it was a very good statement. I thought, of course, like you were wrong, and as you were talking about, we can see the bigger picture, and so I thought it was just, I was like, I just made me kind of like not like him any more than, I mean, I don't hate him, but it just made me have a distaste for him. But as I started thinking about it a little bit more and thinking about his reasons for doing it and stuff like that, he actually made me think of Jaime. I actually thought about him being in the similar, for him, it was a similar situation as to Jaime with the Mad King. And, Jaime was the one that killed the Mad King because the Mad King was going to go crazy and burn everybody. That's how Alliser Thorne sees what Jon is doing. He sees it as you bringing in the enemy into our gates. So I thought there was maybe even a little bit of similarities between the two of them there. And so as you guys were saying, you can understand why he makes the decisions that he does, and why he sticks to it in the end, because that's how he sees the not the White Walkers. That's how he sees the wildlings.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's a great analogy, Daniel. And I think it goes and again speaks again even further as Austin's point that there's a big difference between treason and revolution, because what Javen did was treasonous, but he was on the side of the winners. So therefore, he was the guy. Although, in a weird twist of fate, like even though he killed, like the most evil king Westeros has ever seen, supposedly, he's still a traitor for breaking his vows. Anyway, that point aside, he was on the side of the winners. So ultimately, people somewhat had he was in the right in a way. Yeah, I just think that's a really interesting point, especially when characters like that have been written in such a way where you're generally supposed to dislike them, but I just want to give that character and that point of view some credence. I think it's worth talking about. Now, let's go ahead and move on to Ollie, and I don't want to belabor this Ollie point too much, guys, but I'm a little disappointed, honestly. I think Jon Snow probably made the right decision here. I would have liked to have seen him and Ollie have some sort of scene, although Ollie's never been much of a talker anyway. I really wish they would have handled the fate of Ollie a little differently, I guess. I understand what happened, and I guess from a narrative perspective it makes sense. But, God, and I can't, the Ollie haters are just, and honestly the fact that Ollie died is upsetting to me, because that means the Ollie haters finally got what they wanted.
I think that it speaks more to maybe a difference in Jon Snow. So we talked about how Jon might be different coming back. Death has consequences, obviously, but in this case, they're going to be different because he's alive again. But I still think that we talked about how Jon might be different. I think this is a sign of that. I don't think before Jon died, he would have made the decision to hang Ollie. He may have made the decision to kill some of the other ones, but I don't think he would have made the decision to kill Ollie, who was a kid. And then after his death, he's back. He seems like a much darker Jon Snow in this final scene than we've seen before. So I think that particular part was more speaking to Jon's character.
I think it has less to do with, his death obviously played a role in this, but I think it has less to do with the fact that he was betrayed and then he died, and more to do with the fact that he intends on leaving. Jon Snow made himself the villain to the people who still supported Alistair Thorne by hanging all of the leaders of this movement, right? Jon Snow is the bad guy. And then Jon Snow leaves. He's gone now, and he hands everything off to Ed. What he did was basically make himself the scapegoat for anyone who had any sort of anger about what happened and didn't make it so that Ed had to make these hard choices. He took everything on himself. He was kind of like the Christ figure, and then moved on. He left. And it made it so that Ed can be an effective leader going forward.
So what you're saying is Jon is the hero we need, but not the one that we deserve right now.
I swear to God, guys, there's going to be Braavos is. Oh my God, I am about to ban Batman conversation from this podcast. We're getting really into that territory.
I didn't bring it up. I'm just saying that's where the story's leading us to. It really is.
I agree, Austin. I think it's a good point that he is going to soon be beating up thugs in Winterfell overnight to a pulp. No, Austin, I think that's a good point, and I hadn't thought about it like that. I thought it a bit more as a more selfish reason. I was like, all right, I've fulfilled my vow, and I am out. I gave my life for the Night's Watch, and I am done. But you do raise a good point. How could anyone in the Night's Watch follow him after any of that, really? After being betrayed, and then after him killing the people who killed him? Too much conflict.
I think if Jon Snow had decided to stay, if by chance he said, I'm going to still be leader of the Night's Watch and you all are going to respect me, he would have pardoned Ollie. He would at least jailed him and they would have worked through things because Ollie's a kid, right? But knowing that he's going to leave, knowing that he's going to walk out, that his watch is ended, he can't allow any of the kind of ringleaders of the situation to remain, because that's going to just cause discord for Ed, and Ed's never going to succeed as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And I don't think he wants to set his friend up for failure.
Interesting. I like that point. And then, of course, we get the final line of the episode, which is a pretty awesome line. My watch is ended. Done. Jon Snow's out. And he's on to take that wildly army heading on south down to Winterfell. Ugh, yes, please. Okay, well,
Honestly, it's pretty likely that that's probably what's going to happen.
where else is he going to go?
The question becomes, what does he know? What does he know and not know at this time? We haven't really been filled in on the information he's received about the situation in the north, that, what the Boltons have been doing in Winterfell. He obviously knows that they're there at this point. He probably doesn't know they have Rickon. He'll probably find that out. He might think they still have Sansa, and he probably knows that Stannis invaded. I'm pretty sure he does because of Melisandre and Davos. So it's interesting to see what kind of information Jon has and what decisions he's going to make going forward, because he's still a very, very important figure in this show, even though he's now relinquished all power that he has.
He relinquished his official power, but he's still got lots of power, lots of influence. That'll about wrap up the recap portion of our show. But what I want to talk a little bit about here really briefly is just some of kind of the takeaways and the themes of the ideas. And I know, Austin, you wanted to talk a little bit about the title Oathkeeper.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. I was trying to think about, how does Oathkeeper apply to what we saw this week? And I was really kind of struggling with how we were applying it kind of across the board in the broader sense that we have a lot of the other episodes kind of titles that we've dealt with. Luckily, I found a really great article from Gizmodo, particularly the IO9, which is kind of the science fiction part, by Rob Rickon, where he talks about how everyone in this episode is angry. Everyone's angry with the establishment. Everyone's angry with the rules they have to live within. Jon Snow's angry. Cersei's angry. Daenerys is angry. They're all upset about working within the system that they don't want to have to work within. Bran is upset that he has to leave these visions that he's trying to learn more about. I think the one exception here is Arya, who kind of thrives within the system that she's been put into place. And it's interesting because they bring out the idea that what we're seeing from the show's creators is a little bit of oath breaking from them themselves in the way that we're starting to see the pace of the show pick up. When we were following the books more closely, we saw a situation where I think the article puts as a stately pace of the books and the source material. And now that they've been kind of freed of these rules that have been placed upon them prior to this season, we see things start to pick up and things start to move along at a feverish pace, and things start to move. In this way, I think that the theme of the story this week also applies to the greater story kind of going forward, that the show creators no longer have to deal with the rules that have been put in place by the books, and that they can move along how they see fit. And so far, I think we're all in agreement that it's been pretty good.
I think the season has been really good. It's hard to make past judgment on a season that's only 3 episodes in, but I'd agree with that statement. And that's an interesting kind of meta analysis there. We kind of are looking at the show from a creative perspective. What are the creators doing? And I think that's interesting. An interesting read. I saw this more as Jon Snow. I mean, we look at it as him fulfilling his oath, but to some he might be breaking his oath. I think that's a really good point. I don't know if you see Bran breaking an oath per se, but you do see him kind of trying to escape back to the visions. And of course, you can't deny Arya. She broke her oath to the faceless man, and now she's having to pay the consequences of it. I don't think it's as strong as some of the other titled themes we've seen with other episodes. All right, well, very cool, very cool. Well, I think that's something for us to chew on until next week. Characters upset with their circumstances, and a lot of it has to go back to ties in with last theme, which was family. A lot of them are upset with their family and how they are bound. I'll tell you who's not upset about his circumstances: Ramsey Bolton, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and wrap the show by talking a little bit about next week's title, Book of the Stranger. Now, before we get into our little speculation corner here, I do want to remind all of our listeners out there that if you love what we're doing here on the Cast BL and you want to follow more, hear more, go check us out at goodtrashmedia.com. If you want to find out more, hear more of my dulcet tones across the internet airwaves, or read more Game of Thrones chat, check us out there. Also, right now we are in the midst of raising some funds at Good Trash Media because a couple of different reasons. One, we want to produce more content like the Cast Beyond the Wall, and we really, really need your help. We are currently sitting $11 per month shy of our next Patreon goal. And if you're listening to this and you really like what we've been doing on the Cast Beyond the Wall or any of the stuff we do at Good Trash Media, if you listen to more than one of our shows, I really hope you'll consider contributing to our Patreon because we really, really, really need your help. It helps us provide you guys more content, get you guys cool stuff, but it also just helps us justify the time that we all spend, because doing these podcasts does take time. It does take a lot of time, and it also helps us increase the quality. We have things we want to do, like give you guys more shows. We want to have video we want to be able to dedicate more time. Some of us want to quit our jobs eventually so that we can produce this stuff for you guys full time. And if you like what you've been listening to, we really appreciate all you've done just by giving us that download. But if you like us enough, I really hope you'll consider contributing to our monthly Patreon goal so that we can go ahead and move forward with our next project. Again, we are $11 shy of our next goal, and you can find out how to contribute at patreon.com/GTM. Now, I want to remind the listeners out there that we are people around who do things around the internet occasionally. So where can you continue the Game of Thrones conversation with us? Mr. Austin Lucari, where can people talk to you online?
So my Twitter account is AC Lucari. That's ACLUCARI. Mostly just retweeting some fantastic Good Trash Media content. Not super active on there, but if you have any questions or any beef with me, or what I think about Sam Tarley and how awful he is, you can comment on there.
All right, Mr. Daniel Stoll, how about you? Where can people find you online?
Daniel Stoll 23, DANIEL STULL 23.
All right, great. And of course, if you guys like hearing what I have to say about Game of Thrones or any of the pop culture references I've done out there, you can always tweet at me your Game of Thrones thoughts, or maybe if you want to talk about movies or video games or any of that fun stuff, you can tweet at me at BigCalKenobi91. All right, now let's go ahead and hit on this kind of title next week. I don't really know what to make of it, but I do know one thing. There's only one thing I need to know about next week's episode, and I didn't get it from the title. But you know what I did get in the teaser? Peter fucking Baelish. Done. I don't care about anything else next week. And he's talking to the guy from the Eyrie, meaning I'm assuming he's going to take his King's Landing army that he got from Cersei. He's going to merge it with his Eyrie army that he's going to get he's going to get from the Eyrie, and they're going to march on Winterfell, because it didn't seem like he was too pleased about what he's hearing about Sansa. So that's all I got, guys. I am really glad to see the guy, the puppet master, the shadow player, back in the action.
I truly understand your excitement, Caleb. I get it. I understand, having recently experienced this type of excitement myself. The title itself, Book of Stranger, it's less of a theme, I think, and we'll find out next week, than we have seen kind of in previous episodes where we can kind of apply a theme across all the different storylines. This one seems to reference a very particular event. I'm not sure what that event is, or what that or what storyline it's particularly referring to, but it does seem to be a bit more specific than previous weeks. Daniel, what do you think?
It's definitely ambiguous, more ambiguous than I think several of the other titles. And I agree. It seems like it might be talking about a specific event or item, such as the book. I do feel like when I heard the title Book of the Stranger, I did think of Littlefinger. I feel like he would have a Book of a Stranger. So there you go.
Well, he is kind of a stranger to pretty much everybody. So there's that. What are your thoughts, guys? What do you think about the title Book of a Stranger? Tweet at us at good_trash. Your thoughts about that title, and maybe see where we can find out what your predictions are for next week. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. We can't wait to join you again next week in your post-Game of Thrones weekly waiting discussion. We can't wait until next week when you join us again as we continue to go beyond the wall.